All right, hi everybody. We wanted to bring a bit more awareness to where the food scene is in general, to give you an understanding of if you're feeling that your market is tight or that you're having trouble attracting people or retaining people. The feelings that you have are probably not bogus and you're probably not alone. So we just wanted to give a brief explanation of what is happening out there in the big picture and then how you can work with that. Because once you understand the landscape around you, you can always identify opportunities to address the situation. The issue is perhaps if you don't understand what's happening in the market around you, it's hard to develop some solutions to how to address that. So with every business, you have a life cycle. And typically what will happen is when you come up with this great new idea, all of a sudden you don't have much competition. People either need or want what you've got to offer, and so you'll have really this quick, rapid growth. At the time that you have the quick, rapid growth, the people who need or want your product are seeking you out. You're hard to find. They will go at lengths to pay what they need to pay to get what you have to offer, to do what it takes to come find you. And that's where when we had a lot of people coming to the farmers markets, we had a lot of people going out of their way to join a CSA. That was kind of the boom of the local food life cycle. As people caught on and as more and more people wanted local foods, all of a sudden we started to find acceptance for local food in regular and traditional market channels. So you started to see local food available at your regular grocery store. The minute that local foods began to become more accessible, the market started maturing. There was more people entering the market. And so what happens is you get a wider audience, the target market grows, but your capacity to be the one getting all of the attention of that marketplace diminishes. And so the issue is, what do you do once your market reaches maturity? If you don't do anything, you'll start to see your market decline. And again, it's the same thing with any business cycle. The minute you have a good idea and people start to see, wow, you're really onto something, you're gonna get competition. The minute you get competition, the idea of what you have to offer becomes broader because more people are marketing the concept, but at the same time you have people vying for that market share. And if you're not able to protect your current market share, and if you're not finding innovative ways to go after the other market share that folks around you are developing, your market will begin to slide. And so what we wanted to say was that that's okay. What you're feeling is actually completely normal. The thing is, what do you do about it? You'll have brands, whether it's a brand as a product or whether it's a brand as a service, as a store chain, they can survive for long periods of time because of what they're doing to stay relevant. So again, what happens with your product life cycle, this is what's happening on the other side with your markets. So you have your early adopters and your innovators. Those are the people who will seek you out at all costs. Those are the people that are setting the pace. Then you have the trend followers. The people are like, oh, that's cool, I'm gonna go do that. And so we had all these people hopping on the bandwagon of wanting to buy local food. What that did was that impacted where they were getting the local food, which has impacted our farmers markets because it makes you less the one-stop shop that people have to go to get the local food. Once we get the trend followers, then we get the laggards, and this is where folks like Walmart have entered the scene. The folks who wouldn't even go after local food, but now that it's in their face and they're like, oh, well, if everybody around me is doing it, that's kind of cool, and if it's available and it's cheap, I'll do it too. So yes, the market has expanded, but the market that's actually relevant to you may not have expanded. So what happens? What can you do about it? A couple of the important steps is to really understand, A, know the situation around you. No, it's not abnormal. It's completely just the typical cycle of doing business. So understand your customer. Really start to drive into your market segmentation. It's not enough to just say, this is my geographic region. It's understanding who within your geographic region has a desire and an interest to buy local food, to understand the difference between a generic local product that's available from Pennsylvania versus a local product that's produced within 30 miles of the community in which they live. Understanding what's driving people's purchasing habits. Innovating. We're going to talk about innovating in a minute, but if you understand what's driving their purchasing habits, how can you better relate either your message or your offering to what's driving their purchasing habits? Whether it's the products on offer at your market, whether it's the way that you're servicing the customer. Keeping the brand, and in this case, the farmer's market, fresh. So it's okay to be able to rebrand who you are and what you're doing and what your message is. The withstanding of the price pressure, that's not really for a market channel up to you because your farmers are setting their own prices. That's going to be something more to be able to work with on the producer level, but where you guys can come in really strong is on the customer service side of things. So we really need to be upping our game on our customer experience and on the level of service that we're providing. And again, number 7 is really important, and that's if you look at who your competition is, which is a lot of people who have very high budgets for marketing. You need to be sincere in your marketing, but you really need to step up your marketing efforts. And that's one of the things that we found with the farmers markets over time is we don't have big budgets for the farmers markets. So how can we compete with folks who have gigantic marketing budgets? And we're going to talk about some strategies. In fact, that's the whole afternoon is going to be spent on strategizing how you can do your marketing. The important thing is you really need to be stepping up your marketing. So we wanted to give a couple of examples. Innovating to stay fresh. This is really where it's going to come in helpful and handy for the markets. And we're talking about the channels now. We're not talking about the products, but your services. How can you offer services that are in demand or would be of value to your customers? The product offerings, really looking at what the mix is at your market. Are we attracting just the tourists? Are we attracting the everyday shopper? What value can we add to the market? How can we make our market more accessible? So things to be thinking of. And always look to people who are doing something successfully and don't necessarily get grumpy at it, but kind of assess what they're doing and see how you can strive to replicate what their idea is in your own way. And just to give you an example, Walmart is a company who has the same life cycle as we do, and every time they hit a speed bump, what do? They innovate. So the first example, Walmart in its original form was just a store like everybody else. Everybody had to drive to the store, and basically what they offered was basic necessities. They shot to offer those basic necessities at a cheap price. What happened when they had pressure? When those markets started to flag in terms of sales, they expanded into the supermarket. What did the supermarket do? Now all of a sudden they offered their basic necessities and food. You still had to go to the brick and mortar, but all of a sudden they started competing in the food arena. What happened when that sale model started to flag? All of a sudden now they have organic food, they have local food, they have online ordering, they have home delivery. Has nothing to do with their brick and mortar necessarily anymore. Has nothing to do with the low-cost basic necessities anymore. They continue to find ways to innovate what they're doing to try to stay relevant to their consumer base. Unfortunately, what that's doing for us is that's actually making it harder because they're taking away some of our audience who can now actually get local food, organic food at a Walmart and have it shipped to them. So it gives you an example, not to say that we all have to be Walmarts, but to show you that the big guys are struggling with the same issues that you are. And what we can do is look to see how they innovate, to see what are the things that we can do to be just as competitive. Again, Budweiser, I like the big brands just to show you examples because everybody thinks, oh, that's the big guys, we can never be like them. The big guys have problems too. Look at how many times they had to change their branding. Anytime you see a signal of either concern in the market or the fact that they feel that their sales are stagnating, companies will often undergo a brand refresh. And if you notice, at the beginning of their lifespan, they had a brand refresh once every 10 years, and all of a sudden now the brand refresh is happening every 3 years. So it's not something that becomes insurmountable. It's something that everybody deals with, and it's just to give you that sense of reassurance. Everybody's dealing with it. Let's look at some ways that we can face it. This slide is really meant to start talking about those opportunities. One of the things that Jean and I have noticed when we have chats together is a lot of the times when we're talking with the farmers markets, people are focused on, oh my gosh, we have to access new markets. Well, we might need to access new markets, we might need to grow our customer base, but oftentimes the actual best customer for you to get is the customer you already have. And goals should be to maximize the amount of frequency with which your existing customer base is shopping at your market or your facility, and increasing the dollar value of those transactions. That's going to be, for the bang for your buck, for the bucks that you have, and the energy and the time commitment you have, that is the absolute best strategy you have to make your market more viable. And that's natural for everybody and anybody. Any business out there, their best customer is going to be the customer they already have, and it's going to be the most effective use of their marketing budget is to figure out how to get that person to buy more per shopping excursion and to increase their number of shopping excursions. So the next step is also to understand, especially when you're facing threats from so many other venues who now offer local food, is how to stay relevant to your consumer base. The good thing about the early innovators and the early adopters, they still value at the core the original mission of local food. The people who don't necessarily value the original mission are the trend adopters and the laggards that are just like, oh cool, everybody's doing local food, I'll buy it too, if it's convenient, if it's cheap. The people who had your back at the beginning will still have your back if you can communicate to them why you need them. But they're not going to go out of their way to shop at your location if they can find, quote unquote, the same value and the same product from an easier, more convenient option. So again, it means really being able to understand, what do customers value about the product or service that you're offering, why you need them, and how to effectively communicate to them that they are important to you, so that they don't just go and buy their local food at Walmart. You can do it. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. And one of the key things that will differentiate a farmer's market from other outlets is the way that you can provide an experience for your customer. So in this day and age where we actually all have really everything we need, it's hard to be able to say, well, you have to come and buy this thing. People don't need things anymore. And so what really is motivating people lately is their experiences. And the experiences does not mean that you have to become a fair or a festival. The experience means you still need to be able to provide high quality customer service. And that high quality customer service can be in having more of a visible presence, having a website that functions, letting people know when the hours are, responding to people when they ask what sort of vendors are at the market. Customer service has many different ways in which it can be represented, but ultimately what you want to be doing is providing an experience where the person says, geez, I actually like that, I'm going to go back. I'm going to shop there because I appreciated the people I interacted with, and I appreciated the way that they responded to me. It can also become a fair and a festival if you want. People are looking for experiences, but it doesn't have to be. We can go back to the grassroots of what an original farmer's market was, which was to sell food, but we have to provide above average customer service experience, because they can get a below average customer service experience and buy local food anywhere now. And that's what could set you apart. So thinking on things like being trustworthy and reliable, the personal interactions, being friendly, having product information, and providing authenticity and transparency. Those are some of the things that the other people can't do as well as you. That's where some of the other market channels are going to fall down. So those are strengths that you can begin to consider leveraging. And again, really when you're talking about your communication and your visibility, trying to find reasons to engage frequently. Trying to engage them on what's making you special, what's making your experience unique and different. Providing consistency and repetition in your message. If you feel you're being overly repetitive or overly communicative, that's you, because you're the one sitting there thinking about this every day. Your average audience isn't thinking about you every day. You need to reinforce your message or they're not going to hear it. And oftentimes we get this sense that, oh my gosh, we're going to bombard them with emails. They'll tell you if you're bombarding them. In general, people need to hear from you more than you're actually talking to them. And that's what the good brands do. And have something of valuable to communicate. So now we'll pop in.
Yeah, I think we can just have a quick pause there to see if that brought anything up for you all. Any questions for Rose? I find that presentation so provocative, but any clarifying questions or strong feelings you're having?
So again, thinking on innovation, you hit a trigger point, which is you just said they're all coming when you're closing. Have you given thought to having your hours shift?
Yes, and I barely survived that suggestion to the vendors. They just simply want to go home at 6 because they have kids to feed.
Yeah. And that's going to be the type of thing that you're going to need to discuss. If you face resistance, and this would happen in any business boardroom, if you face resistance to innovation, you might find yourself not being able to survive the tailspin. But the fact is you've hit on a point, which is that if people aren't coming at the time that you're open, what can you do about that?
Another point for me is that later on in the workshop we'll look at target customers and really identifying who are your core customers and who are your targets for expanding your customer base. And so looking at that, I find so often we feel like we want everyone to be our customer, but more likely we'll be successful if we kind of choose who we're speaking to. And I don't know how your market's doing, but if it may be possible that your current customers are the right customers for your market and that timing works for those customers, and so it's okay. The fact that the vendors come suggests that it might be okay.
It depends on what your budget is. So again, the easiest way to effectively use your dollar is going to be to target your existing customers. And so I say that like with our farmers markets, A, we have limited geographies, and B, we have very limited budgets. So if you have a limited budget, the most effective return for that budget is going to be to target your existing folks. Once you've saturated that, or in tandem with that, you could look at expanding your bubble. And then expanding the bubble really says, okay, let's go in and re-segment the market outside of where we're already servicing. Who could that audience be? And develop a plan for going after them. But again, you're initiating brand new relationships with people who've never tried you before. So the neat thing about having an existing customer base is they've already tried you. They've gotten over the bubble of at least trying to come, which is a big bubble. In the try and buy period is really important no matter what you're trying to sell. And so the most money in marketing is spent getting people up and over the hurdle of trying. So if you've already gotten them up and over the hurdle of trying, then all you have to do is reconvince them to come back. That's a much easier to sell. But there's no reason that you can't expand. And one of the things that we were just talking about is if we have limited budgets, then yes, the easiest thing to do is to try and get your existing base to just buy more of what you already have to offer and kind of work on the outer edges and expanding that as you have time and your budget allows for, but not stressing on that being what's going to make or break your farmer's market.
Yeah, I guess that's what, that expanding that bubble is sort of we're interested in, how you can define that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that'd be a great goal to kind of target as we start doing the workbooks, you know, that maybe your goal is really to reach out to some new audiences, bring in some new customers. So we can,
Yeah, and I think of that for the VTFMA too, you know, it's a statewide.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, we could start a Bring a Friend Day, you know, Vermont Bring a Friend Day to the farmer's market, and everybody who brings a friend who hasn't ever been to the farmer's market gets something, or we do something, you know. There can be definitely creative ways, and that's what we're talking about, is how to be creative without having a gigantic bank account to work from. But certainly there's opportunities to both expand the bubble. The good thing about that market curve that you saw with who our audience is, the market for local food is growing. It's just our ability to capture those other people. They generally don't value us as much as the early innovators. So if we can get the early innovators to bring them along, great. There is expanded market. They're just more likely to lean towards convenience and price, which tends to be less in our favor of what we have available to offer. Yes, up in the back.
I think the authenticity piece is just such a strong one for us. And so that makes me go back and think about the local co-opting that's happening at, you know, places like Walmart. Just out of curiosity and any of the research that you've done for this, how are they sort of speaking their local talk? What are they saying? What are, you know, when I buy those apples, what makes me think they're local if I get them at Walmart? And thinking about that in terms of then how we can speak to our local.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Again, this is where you're going to come in strong. So we'll go to the next section of the market, which is that as the big companies have come in, they've seen our opportunity. The definition of local and sustainable and many of the original buzzwords that we're using have started to get, I think the word now is called greenwashing. They're getting quite abused. The certification standards for organic are getting watered down. There's a lot of concern everywhere about the fact that a lot of what we've built up to create is getting watered down. At the same time, there's so much competition that people are going out. So the unfortunate thing is that a lot of the folks that we work with might go out of business. The important thing that does do is people are going to get disillusioned with the big guys, as they always do. We're going to have more opportunities at the smaller level again, and people are going to, especially the early innovators and adopters who had bought into our vision in the beginning and our values, when they try out the big stuff and they get disillusioned, they're going to be ripe and primed for us to come back if we have a message for them. So it's going to be really important that we have that message and that we remain true to our values as we're doing it. So we have to have a bit more of a message out there, but the good thing is that cycle, while it's right in this prime right now of everybody's kind of leaving us, they're going to be slowly starting to come back to us, and we're going to have this little circle, and then it's just going to kind of go in that perpetual circle from here on out. But there is that opportunity, and I think that's where it's going to be really important that you have a strong message as to what is your definition of local, who are your farms, putting a real face to what you have to offer.
Yeah, I really appreciate Rose's emphasis on how the cycle promotes kind of mimicry, like people see something's working and then they try to imitation. I saw a marketing report or an industry newsletter that was encouraging grocery stores to like adopt the farmer's market look, and they encouraged that by hanging pictures of farmers with the farm name and like putting up handwritten signs that said fresh peaches, stacking crates. So, really kind of trading on what it looks like and feels like to be at the farmer's market. But of course, that's like as deep as it goes. If anyone tries to scratch that at all, it will be very hard to actually get to that farm who's pictured in the portrait. And so then our job is to really think about what's the emotion that's trying to convey. It's like the emotion of trust and connectedness, and what can we do more than just like name the vendors on our website or stack crates. You know, we really we actually do build community, and we actually do have these relationships. And so you know, I think about having a video of the farm hosting customers from the market at their farm, or the farmer patting the dog and, hey, Barry, you know, my favorite dog's visiting again. That just the real earnest, both we can capture that in imagery and video, but also that we just live and breathe that. And so to really make sure that that's what it feels like at our markets, and that that's being conveyed along the way.
There we go. Okay, well, actually, so Gina and I had a question for you guys. When we say marketing, what do you think of?
Signs.
Okay. Yeah.
Customers.
Yeah.
Incentives.
Persuasion.
Yeah.
Media attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All the above.
Storytelling.
Yeah. Description.
Okay.
Communication.
Yep. It's all of those things. Marketing is very broad, and it encompasses both generating awareness, it includes informing, it includes the customer service, it includes the packaging and the placement of the product and service that you're offering. So it's communication is a piece of it, and then there's all these other elements that come into play. So it is what is responsible for hitting your sales goals. It is also what's responsible for every interaction that you have with your customer. And that's really powerful. So whether it's how you choose, and again, so where is the farmers market located? When are the hours of the farmers market? How visible is the farmers market? How many people know about the farmers market? What do you do when you get inquiries about the farmers market or when you get a complaint? All of those things are representative of what marketing is. The features and benefits are what we're going to be spending a lot of time on, which is, so what are we? And how does that benefit the customer? Because that's what we need to know in order to be able to develop an effective marketing campaign. And this is just a quick example to show you. For example, we started off with carrots. Okay, then we had certified organic carrots. And now all of a sudden we have carrots that are clean, washed, bagged, and topped. So what are the features and benefits of each of those versions of a carrot?
Who wants to respond? Well, we're in a takeout society now. I mean, on the go, fast moving. You went from, wow, beautiful presentation, fresh, to this is fresh and it's organic, to hey, grab and go. That's the game now, grab and go.
Yeah, fresh, organic, and grab and go. If you can do all three, anyone my age will buy it. And particularly if it's Instagrammable. No, dead serious, you think I'm joking? If it can be Instagrammed, it will sell better.
So there you go. Everybody keep that in mind when we talk about your strategies. So the original carrot is addressing a need. The improving of the carrot is addressing a want. And thinking about yourselves in terms of, am I addressing a need or a want? And how can I strengthen that commitment of the customer's need or want sufficient to propel them to come to me? So one of you asked about how are some of the local co-ops dealing with this. I decided to pick Healthy Living as an example. And if you can see what Healthy Living is doing, and I don't know how big this slide is, so let me just pop over with a couple examples. But the first thing is, so they've developed a nice logo. Their logo speaks to what they're trying to offer, which is healthy food, healthy lifestyle. They've developed a tagline, which is always fresh. And always fresh is really focusing on the feature being fresh product, The benefit being always triggers that thought in your mind, I can trust that when I buy from these people, it is always going to be fresh. So again, that word is very particular, and it's triggering a level of comfort inside you that if you buy from them, you know it's going to be good. And then they use it repeatedly. It's in most of their marketing, when you see it in the store or online. So they do repetitive use of their messaging. Yeah?
Is that trademarked? Like, could the farmer's market use that?
I don't know. That's a good question. You could ask them.
Actually, I wouldn't ask them. I would do it. The Secretary of State sort of knows. Yeah, that's good.
Right. I mean, you can always get a cease and desist, which you won't get in trouble for cease and desist. Then they have various, because Jean was talking about marketing campaigns, so they have various elements to their campaign. One, customer service. So the minute that I went onto their website, the little chat box popped up. Chat box, hi, can I help you today? What do you need help with? The fact that they're trying to promote that they're celebrating women in business. I didn't know that they were women-owned, but this month they're women-owned and they're featuring women products. So specials of the month are going to include products that were made by companies founded by women. Again, they're finding ways to be able to communicate with you, communicate in the store and online and in some of their other marketing materials about something that they value, that they think connects with their customers. They also do specials. So here their featured posts of the month are going to be that they've got 7th generation products and green grapes on sale. So again, are those tools that we could be using? Could we have a featured producer of the month that we start marketing about, or a featured product? Or are there folks that are offering specials at our market that if we knew about ahead of time, we could be communicating to our public? It doesn't have to necessarily always be about price. So here, for example, they're featuring the fact that they've got the brand new turmeric crop come in. Could we do things like that with our producers? So again, you're promoting the market, but at the same time, you're also promoting the products and offerings within your market. So thinking about those types of strategies.
One of the things that I've found works very well, particularly for oddball products like these things that look like satellites and what have you, you look at them and they say, what do I do with that? Now, if you provide people with a recipe, it's amazing how many you sell.
Absolutely.
And amazing how many you don't if it sits there.
Yeah, it's the try and buy. So that whole, that goes right back to the try and buy. That's a really pertinent term for you to remember is you have to get people, that's why demos are so important, because you have to get people over the, people don't like bad experiences. And they also definitely don't like paying for bad experiences. So the hardest thing to do is to put something in front of someone and say, oh, buy this, it's going to be great. People are especially upset and disappointed if they're dissatisfied with the experience. So if they actually go through the effort of the try and buy, they buy it and then they're dissatisfied, that reinforces their decision to never try another thing again that they're completely not certain about. And that's why the demoing really works. That's why providing recipes to teach them how to use it so that if they take it home, they're going to know what to do with it is very important. You're providing that reassurance to them that it's okay. You are going to have a good experience with this. We pretty much are going to coach you through it. We guarantee that at the other end of it, you're still going to come out feeling good about yourself.
Rachel Ray was a grocery store demonstrator.
Yeah, absolutely. She's a whiz. And again, looking at how people who are successful are doing it, you don't have to be like them, but try to see where there's opportunities of what they're doing that you could incorporate into what you're doing. If you have a special person who's really good at that and being able to promote, hey, so-and-so is on demo today and they're going to be doing this, that, and the other. A lot of, I think, where your opportunity is going to be is just improving communicating what is happening at the market and finding innovative, within what you're already doing, what is something that you could talk about. So that was just an example of healthy living. What is important for the co-ops, and it's the same that's going to be important for you guys, and I wouldn't get too deep into this, but I went to a whole conference in December on what's happening with Whole Foods. The wonderful thing for us, it's terrible for our producers, it's terrible for the world at large, but Whole Foods is really going corporate now that they've been bought by Amazon. What that is going to do is, again, it's the greenwashing of Whole Foods. Because Whole Foods is going corporate, is going Amazon, it is going to reignite people's desire to buy more local again. It's an opportunity. If you don't capitalize on it, you're going to lose out. So I would say capitalize on that opportunity. That's what the local co-ops are doing now. It's an opportunity for you to re-engage with saying, I'm true to my roots, I'm true to our local farms, because that is really what's happening. We've got a lot of our local foods are getting kicked out of Whole Foods. The Whole Foods' whole vision of how they're operating is going to be much more based on corporate sales and pricing. So you don't have to deal with that as a negative. You can actually leverage that as a strength. This is an example, again, I'm not sure if my slide shows it too much, but this is this new company. So even in a completely saturated market channel, we still have companies trying to make new entrants. And so this is one called Wayfair. I don't know if you've seen it recently. They're an online merchant that... Relentless. See, that's exactly why I wanted to feature them. If you think hitting over the head isn't going to work, that's what professional companies do. They just don't stop. Relentless is a wonderful word for it. This is just 1/3 of the ads that they've got airing right now. So they have, what's that, like 12? And they have 12 and 12. So they've got like 30 something ads going right now. And that's exactly it. They are relentless. But even if you just look at the titles of the ads, thinking about what are they trying to hit on? What is the message that they're trying to say? And I thought we could pick one and listen to it. So this one, the musical, I wouldn't worry about. Wayfair, my secret weapon. Wayfair, my game changer. Wayfair, big stuff ships free. Wayfair, holidays ad. Wayfair, your way. Wayfair, save a ton. Wayfair, I can't explain it. Wayfair, covered in more ways. Wayfair, just what I need. And Wayfair, bring your home to life. So what are they trying to get across to us? Just in the titles alone of what you think those ads are trying to convey. That's really important. So in your marketing, how often do you tell people who you are? That's a very good point. Most people, you won't believe how many times I see people's marketing communication and they forget to say who they even are. They're like, "Oh, we're great. Come and do this with us." And you're like, "Wonderful, but who are you? And then how do I contact you?" Put your contact information on things.
There are so many farmers market websites that don't have the day and hours of the market, like on the Facebook page. Like,
yeah,
it's easy to forget about.
Exactly. It's really important. And that goes back to that customer service aspect. You really need to look at your information from a fine-tuned perspective of how can I be improving my communication to our audience. And take some outside information, have somebody look at it and just tell you, hey, are you getting the information you would need out of this? And if not, I'll go ahead and fix it. But sometimes you get so involved and you can't see it. So if you can have a third party just reviewing your information and your work for you, that can be really helpful.
I was just hearing you run through that. What immediately came into my mind was the marketing group for VTFMA. Let's use it. Vermont Farmers Markets, Vermont Farmer, and just have a variety with a tagline.
Absolutely.
That we can and that will serve all of us around the state.
Absolutely.
Or even, what first came to my mind was your local farmers market, because wanting to use that, pronoun to really kind of make connections, but it's something like that can be replicated and shared statewide.
Exactly. Yeah, there's power in working together. And I think that's actually why we had started to situate folks in geographic regions. Absolutely power in working together and having a group message that if we all pitch in and share our resources, we can have that group message communicated over and over. Because it is the repetitiveness that's going to make a difference.
We have to be relentless, is what you mean.
We have to be relentless. And I was actually, This is what I do for a living. This is what I tell people. I'm like, you have to be patiently persistent, but you have to be persistent. And Abby apparently calls it professional nagging. We have to be professional nags because we are outside of the day-to-day habits of your customers. Like the gentleman behind you said, we're not open every day of the week. We're not exactly convenient. So we have to remind people of why we exist, and we have to do it more than other people who are more easy and convenient to access. And they won't hate you for it. That's the other thing people have to get over. We're not going to hate you for reminding us that you're important to us, because you are important to us. But we've got so many other things going on that if you don't remind us why my farmer is going to survive because he makes better money at your farmer's market than he does if he goes to Walmart, I don't know that unless you tell me that. And if you're not communicating that message, I'm going to be like, well, dude, I just bought at Walmart. I'm sure he's fine. It's like, no, he's getting 50% on the dollar. The only way he's able to sell to Walmart is because he's also selling at the farmer's market. And if you're not shopping at the farmer's market, he can't afford to sell to Walmart. And guess what? He's going under. So you have a very powerful message to tell. But if your customer doesn't know that, they're not going to understand why you're vital to the community and why you're vital to the farmers and why you're vital to them. So it is a powerful message. Did we want to do that?
Yeah.
Just for quick?
The links, where are there links on that slide?
I put it on the slide just so that it could.
Hopefully they lasted.
And I don't know if the, and it is a really annoying ad, but that's the point. Okay, how do I get the sound to go loud? I can hear it here. I just. I don't know if anybody can hear it, but here. Okay, here, I'll just do this just so that we can.
Saying we need to dance more?
Can they hear it?
That's so great. So Rose kind of touched at the beginning of this little section about features and benefits, features being kind of what it is we're offering, the qualities of what we're offering, and the benefits being the experience that the customer has. So in looking at that ad, can you guys identify like a few features, kind of what they felt the attributes were of their product and service?
I think the thing you're going to learn most is assembly of things that don't assemble.
So there's the benefit that you will learn something new.
Really be frustrated.
Okay. Yeah, just shout them out.
I just noticed that all through the ad, they keep stressing that these things are what you need. They're not about what you want or might like. You need them.
Totally. So fulfilling a need, there's a benefit.
They arrive instantaneously, practically.
Uh-huh.
And everybody's happy because they get what they need.
The benefit is everyone's
Free shipping,
happy.
They got zillions was the word.
Right.
Zillions.
So free shipping is a feature that they're offering, and 70% off is a feature. The benefit is, oh, it just came at my door and it's in my house. Poof! You didn't have to do anything.
I got everything I need.
Yeah.
I got everything I need.
Exactly.
You need to be able to come to the farmer's market, get a new house, sex, drugs, rock and roll, good food, babysitter, all that kind of drive-through opportunity. That's where the culture's at.
Right.
So how do we distill that down to a farmer's market way to make that work? And there's things that are attractive about us.
There is so much confusion about want and need. There is no clarification in the media about, there's purposeful confusion about want versus need.
Well, so something that's right, that's just the point, is this is that the media telling us what we want and need. And that's kind of like what I was referring to as the call to action earlier, is that people are just like, oh, they're inundated. It's hard to even know anymore what I want and need. But if my trusted community, my authentic transparent, trusted friends at the farmer's market tell me, like, we have the best carrots and you want them because they're sweet and your child will eat them, I might feel like, yes, thank you. I do want that. And yeah.
Yeah, on that note, even being able to distill it down to a similar message, if that message apparently is effective, which I had the stats on how those ads are doing, distilling it down to, hey, okay, at your farmer's market, we have everything you need for tonight's meal.
Right.
And then actually assessing, again, going back to your offerings, do we have everything at our farmer's market so that somebody could prepare tonight's meal? I was somewhere recently where they said that the issue with the farmer's market there was that it wasn't. There was like one veggie vendor and no meat vendors and a lot of wooden furniture stuff. And they were like, I can't even get a meal at my farmer's market if I wanted to. And I thought that was an interesting thought. And actually, it hadn't occurred to me to tie the two together. But so if you distill we have what you need, or we have what you need to make tonight's meal, just thinking along the lines of, if that's successful, how could we look at what they're doing and what are the calls to action, and start analyzing this in other ads that you see from other people. What is their call to action? Because the good thing about following the big guys, they've spent the money on the psychology. So they know what's driving people's purchasing habits. And if you guys can take that, distill what's the core message, and see how you can adopt that message, again, not to go and try to be something that you're not, or to have values that you don't have, but if there's a message that you can use that reflects a good call to action, like, come and we have what you need to make tonight's meal, and it's going to be a good meal, it's going to be a fresh meal, it's going to be a local meal, that's a good message.
Let's take one more, and then we're going to transition into a kind of working session, so we'll get to talk more. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll take both of them, because I saw you and Rosa.
I was wondering, how helpful or important do you think it is to keep up and maintain that sort of like relentless messaging in the off season?
Great question.
So if you don't run a market throughout the winter, how important is it for us to remind people that the market exists, even if there isn't necessarily like much to update them on?
No, I would certainly say it's important to keep people in mind, to start prepping them. So the minute that we have the fall season ends, we start prepping people to remember to start buying their CSA shares. I have folks that start signing people up for their spring CSAs in the fall. I would say continue to start reminding them, hey, you know, we're going to be gone for now, but we'll see you again soon. Definitely put signage out in front of the market, letting people know. And that's something that people do terribly. Signage is really important. So keep your signage nice. I mean, that's something that we all have it within our budget to do, and use it to your advantage. So having a sign that's a really pretty sign saying, we're closed, this is our last day, would be October 26th. We'll see you soon, you know, we start on May 12th or whatever it is, but have really nice visible signage. Have that be the first thing that comes up on your website. Have it be a message that goes out reminding people, you know, hey, it's starting to come time, get your plans ready, here's who we're gonna have this. You can have all sorts of reasons to communicate in the off season. Yeah.
I think it's important to be relentless in the marketing, but I'm wondering if you think there's a point of negative returns. And the ad that I'm thinking about is this My Pillow guy. I mean, when I see his ad on Channel 3, I turn it to Channel 5, and in a few minutes he's there. Again. So I think the Wayfair ads don't affect me that way, but the My Pillow ads do.
Well, you know what's amazing is here we are in this room and you're talking about it. I've never heard of that before, but now I have.
You've never seen the ad?
No.
But is there a point of negative return that you have to be sensitive?
That's the concern that I think we're overly worried about. If we ever have the budget to the point where you're over communicating to the point of negative returns, I would be ecstatic. I don't think we're ever going to get there. You definitely don't have anything to worry about. And people individually will tell you if they're, that's why people have like unsubscribe email lists. If people don't want your communications, that's fine, and they weren't necessarily your target audience anyways. But until people are actively telling you, oh my God, you're way over communicating, don't worry about it. And most of us likely are nowhere close to over communicating.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to go into a little activity here. And this is really to help clarify what your features are. So what are the attributes of what you're offering? And then what are the benefits that your customers receive from that feature? And the reason to split that up is so often I'll hear people talk about their market or their product, and I'll say, well, what are the benefits of your product? And they'll say, it's organic. And I say, well, that's, there are some kind of assumptions that we can put into that about what the benefit for me as a consumer is because it's organic. Oh, sorry. But organic is not a benefit in itself. Organic is an attribute that is assigned to a product, and similar with local. The fact that something is local is not a benefit in and of itself. The fact that that local product will make me feel, purchasing that local product will make me feel like I've supported my local economy, or make me feel happy because it makes me think about my local farm. Those are benefits that I'm receiving from buying that local product. But the fact that it's local is not a benefit. And so when we're doing our marketing, we want to name some of those attributes, but really what you want to be conveying is what are the benefits that the consumers are going to feel, experience, get from coming to your market. And getting clear about what the benefits are kind of forces you to sit in the mind and heart of your consumers, and may really open up some new perspectives of little tweaks you could make to your market, whether it's a new product or a slightly different configuration, or maybe you offer shopping carts, some things that might just really speak to their needs. So this is a list. I know you can't read this. It's really just here as a reference. It is in your workbooks. Exactly. So it's on a white piece of paper. It's called the Features and Benefits Cheat Sheet. And what I would love for you to do is, as a group, let's do it as a group, that you kind of identify together, what do you feel are the top kind of 5 to 7 features that your product offers, and what are 5 to 10 benefits that your customers experience from those features.
And the important distinguishing factor between the two is the benefit is going to be the motivating factor for the consumer to come and buy from you. The feature is what enables you to have that benefit. So your marketing message is going to be based on the benefits. The benefits stand on the features that you have. So when Jean was talking about organic is a feature of the product, but organic in and of itself won't necessarily be the motivating factor purchase. The motivating factor would be that, oh my God, that's healthier, or I know it was humanely raised. That's going to be the motivating factor, and then you substantiate the motivating factor with what your feature is.
So the benefit is the bold type, and these are.
Exactly. And so when you're, just in general for you guys, when you go home, when you're creating your marketing messages, the marketing message needs to be focused on the benefit, and the benefit comes from the feature. But way too many folks market their features without explaining the benefits, and that is not a motivating marketing message.
And particularly now that our key buzzwords of local and organic have just started to get really kind of washed out by the mass market, we started to use those as shortcuts to the benefits, but we really can't do that anymore because we're going back to Rose's kind of reinvigoration. We are at this moment where we really need to dig back into what is it that customers are asking for, what do they need, and how do we meet those benefits. All right, so we're gonna, I'd love to start by just hearing any revelations about like new ideas about benefits that your market offers that you hadn't really verbalized before. So a new framing, and any new benefits you identified that were like, aha, this is a benefit of our market. Okay, no new benefits. How about like a new revelation about what a benefit is?
Well, consistency. First of market, we do rain or shine markets, and been on the rain lots of times and that kind of thing. But we were just discussing at the end of our little piece that, people can count on us.
Yes.
Even if it's 15 minutes before the end of the market. Some people get there early if they got other things to do. They know we're going to be there. They come there on a weekly. Especially if we're not there when they really need something, they're not coming back. So that's kind of what, I'm paraphrasing that.
And you're hitting it right on the board, which was what we had talked about when I was even at your table, was the fact that you are open 22 weeks of the year, and that you're there rain or shine. Okay, so that's the feature. The benefit is people can count on you. And again, thinking about the fact that the benefit needs to be that succinct message communicating to the customer what the feature is doing for them. So it's great to know that you're open 22 weeks a year and you're there rain or shine. What does that do for me? I can count on you. And so then if you turn that into your marketing message, your benefits are going to be your marketing messages. They're going to be those very clear, very short, succinct statements that you can use. People call them jingles or your taglines, but those are those messages. So when Jean's talking about a marketing campaign, each of your taglines, each of your messages can be in and of itself a single campaign, or it can be lumped in with some of these other benefits. But the benefits are those marketing statements. How is your feature helping you and helping your customers? So that was perfect, right. We're open this many hours, we're open before, we're open afterwards, you can count on us, we're consistent. Anybody else?
Great, and so as we progress through, we're gonna talk about target customers, and then we'll kind of set a goal, a marketing goal for the year. And while we move through these next steps, I encourage you to keep kind of reflecting back on all of the benefits that you identified in this exercise, and thinking about like, how do these benefits speak to the customers I want to target? How do these benefits and these customers I want to target speak to the goal I have? And to recognize that, you know, as you work through these workbooks, you'll see like, wait, we started on number 7 and this is number 2, like where are we? And the reason is because it's really an iterative cycle. Like you might start with your marketing goal and then identify target customers and then identify benefits. But after you've done those things, you'll reflect back to like, oh, now that I see that this is really one of our central benefits, maybe we should shift our goal, or maybe we should be targeting a different set of customers. So to be a little bit flexible and fluid, and using this to build continually build a more refined identity and goal. So we're going to transition now to talk about target customers, and I'm going to let Rose take us there.
Oopsie, sorry about that. So, and this goes back to Steve wanting to think about expanding his market as well as targeting the existing customers. It's really important that you get to know who your existing customers are and understanding why and how they shop. And then also how you could potentially expand upon your customers. So in our case, most folks who are original shoppers at the farmers markets would be kind of probably considered the early adopters. Are we getting some more mainstream folks? You know, how have you seen the demographics at your market shift over time? Are you getting really just your local community, or are we becoming more of a tourist-driven attraction? Are we getting different life cycle? You know, are the millennials coming and shopping on their own? Are we really just getting the baby boomers? So who is the demographic makeup of your market? And as you think about who's already coming to your market, how could you potentially appeal to a broader audience? Either expanded versions of that section. So if you know, for example, that baby boomers love coming, could you expand your geographic target of baby boomers? Or could you appeal to more people that aren't within the circle of folks who are already coming? So trying to understand who's already coming, and then who are you not capturing that you think might be a good fit. And this then goes back to, once you know who they are, what are their needs and their values? Why would they want to come? And this goes back to the benefits. Why would they want to come to our market? So this table over here, we were talking about, one of the thoughts was, well, the Milton Farmers Market happens to be on the way to Snow Farm, which hosts this really neat free concert series. And the Milton Farmers Market is open right before the Snow Farm concert. So all of a sudden you're like, one of the features is we're open right before the concert and we're on your way. The benefit could be come and get your picnic basket full of stuff to eat at the concert. So again, thinking about who is coming to the market, what are their needs and values, and how you can reach them and then communicate. That's the next step. We can't just say the benefit is we're on our way to the concert. The benefit has to be, hey, you can get your dinner and bring it to the concert. So finding out what are the values and what are the needs, but then transforming that into that neat message that's going to get the consumer to actually do something. And Jean likes to call it your call to action. So we had a tagline over here of your buck shops local, something similar to that, to reflect the fact that all the farms are within a 40 or a 26-mile radius. The feature is the farms are within a 40 to a 26-mile radius. The benefit is your dollar is going right to your local community. So again, thinking about who are your customers, what is going to target them, what is going to resonate with them, and then how to transform that into messages that are clear and succinct and get stuck in your head. Size and scope. How many of your customers are out there? This is always a really good question. So once we know who your typical audience is, then we can actually do things like go to the census data to get a handle on, well, how many other people like them are there? Once you do your market surveys and you get a sense for how far people are coming from, you can start to get a sense of, okay, here's my geographic range, here's the general scope of where people are coming from, here's the type of people who are coming, and here's how many of them live within that range. And then we can actually start to further say, okay, if there's that many of them within this range, and I can start counting how many people I see coming to the market every day, what percentage of that market am I actually getting? Ways to do it, your customer counts, customer surveys, community surveys, using census data, kind of trying to talk with other folks, and doing some third-party research. There's a lot of publications out there now talking about who's buying local or what they're buying or where they're buying. So it does take a bit of time, and again, that's potentially part of the problem is we're not fully employed doing this as our day-to-day job. It does require a bit of legwork, but it doesn't mean it can't be done, and it doesn't mean it can't be fun while you do it. If you like data mining, we should be able to have some fairly useful tools to go about doing it.
Yeah, and as we transition to the activity, I know that NOFA has been supportive of a bunch of markets doing survey, customer counts and other on-market surveying, and this kind of references back to what I spoke to about this morning about really working together at different scales. You know, it's so great that we have the VTFMA and NOFA and other state organizations that have resources to kind of help compile some of this market research and then also to support us in doing our own on-the-ground market research. So definitely use those resources. Okay, so, oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm having a little trouble because the assumption here is that in the backstory is that you can attach shopping characteristics to each type of this target customer. And is that true? Do you know what I mean? Or are you talking about, you know, how do you make your message relevant to these people? At some point, it just feels like, you know, profiling, you know.
Yeah, it is.
Making me uncomfortable because, you know, I was only at the farmers market for a couple of months, and I'm selling herbs, starts, and things like that. The people who came up did not at all turn out to be what I expected from as they approached and how they talked to me. You know, some of them turned out to be incredibly knowledgeable, and you would not have thought that. I mean, I don't even want to say that, but do you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering, how does this translate to knowing how to talk to how do we even identify who you know, these categories? Put people in these categories.
Well, so what you're targeting, what you're touching on is a really important point, which is by you going to the farmer's market, you've now begun to interact with the customer base and you've learned about them. So you've started to do your market research and you've identified that the way in which you might have approached them without knowing them is different now that you know them and you have a better sense of what their message and their values and their education is. That's actually exactly what we want you to be doing. So you've researched your market, you have a better understanding of who they are and what buttons to press, and that's great. That's exactly what we want you to be doing. It's not so much profiling as it is understanding who your customer is so that you can better communicate with them. Because if your message doesn't resonate, it is not going to be absorbed. And that is the problem. We'll spend way too much time and effort and money on messages that either people don't think are meant for them or are just not the message that is going to resonate with them. And that would be a lot of wasted effort. So the fact that you took the time to go and through going and having spent some time and energy learning a bit more about your customer, that's actually what we do need you guys to be doing.
And so the profiling is an interesting word, because just as Rose said, it's not exactly profiling. I was going to say, well, yeah, we're profiling. So, I mean, this identifying target customers and then putting them into profiles is kind of an exercise in imagining different groups of people and their behaviors. And of course, it is not hard and fast. There is no person on earth who fits squarely into any of these things or any other group you could imagine. And this is a group, again, this is like what I put on your cheat sheet, just to give you some ideas of different ways to group people. And the oh yeah, no, that's okay. No, it's so, and the reason we do it is it helps us to imagine, again, like to step into their shoes. What are their patterns throughout the day? You know, what are their interests? Where do they go? To really start identifying, like, oh, if we know that wine enthusiasts love cheese, you know, that, and wine enthusiasts go to the wine store, and they also go to the community college where there's a class on wine tasting, you know, that we can start saying, like, well, we want to target the community college and the wine store with our cheese messaging. So it's a helpful way to kind of imagine people's patterns. And again, total huge caveat, you should never assume that like anyone fits squarely into these groups or to be rigid in them, because as you expressed, as you actually interact with people, you'll see fluidity and nuance, and that some of your assumptions were wrong, and maybe you need to like just rename that group or scratch it. You know, wine enthusiasts don't like my cheese. They like some other kind of cheese, and so they are no longer my target, but who really likes my cheese are back to the landers. And I will just say that a lot of these groupings came from the Farm to Plate network. They actually did a whole customer profile exercise and split people up into kind of where on the spectrum of local purchasing motivations they are. And so if you are interested in customer profiling and that's a useful tool for you, there it is. If you go to the Farm to Plate network, you know, Vermont consumer profiling.
Email me
and Erin can give it to you.
I think if there's a lot of data behind it, like survey data and matching up preferences with self-identification, you know, I'd love to look at that data.
Yeah, no, this is not that. This is people sitting in a room like imagining, different kinds of people and what kind of like buzzwords they respond to, and so it's, go ahead.
Market research, I mean, when I'm working one-on-one with folks on their business plans, that's exactly what we talk about. Is the best market research is your direct market research that you're doing on your actual desired customer base. It's you spending face time with them, speaking with your buyers, speaking with the customers, really getting to know them, using third-party data, but really don't rely on the third-party data for that is supportive information at best. And I would hate to see a business plan rely solely on third-party information. The other thing about marketing is very psychology-based, unfortunately. And you can see the way the world is going, how people can use marketing to not necessarily positive ends. So ideally, we're going to use marketing to a good end, because we have something positive that we're trying to promote and get people to buy into. But that's exactly what marketing is. And unfortunately, we've gotten, as a society, so good at marketing that it can be scary what marketing can do. So we're going to try and use the power of marketing to a positive outcome. And that's important because we have to be promoting the positive side of society. And the tools, it is a psychology. Marketing is the whole premise of marketing is trying to understand people's behaviors and trying to influence those behaviors. That's exactly what marketing is. And again, when we talked about it earlier, the goal is to increase the frequency with which they're shopping from us and increasing the transaction value. That is all influence. We are trying through our marketing to influence. And so as long as we're using it for positive purposes, I'm okay saying this is how we can do it. But it can be, you can sometimes feel a little scary, and that's why I would say I would never want to be the used car salesman. I want to promote things that I care deeply about and that I value, and that's how I would use my marketing skills. And I would hope that that's what you guys would use your marketing skills for. And as long as you have something really good to promote, I wouldn't be afraid of trying to be successful at what you're doing. And in order to be successful at what you're doing, you really have to understand your audience. And you have to understand how to communicate with them, both the mediums. So do they interact on Facebook or Instagram, or do you need to go and interact with them in a personal setting at the market? And then also the messages. What is the messaging that's going to resonate? If they're not going to the Snow Farm event, it makes no sense telling them to come and pick up their picnic basket. That's going to be a very targeted message to a very specific audience, but we know that there's enough of them that that's a good market message to promote, in addition to all the other messages we're going to have. And that's where that market segmentation comes in. So one segment of the Milton Farmers Market is going to be headed towards Snow Farm. We're going to create a very specific, very distinct message for that particular audience. We're going to have a different message for some of our other audiences.
So in turn, you could offer a wine and cheese deal at the farmers market on the way to this,
exactly.
co-op marketing with the
absolutely.
Assets, right?
Yep, and that's where the power of co-op marketing comes in, the power of working with your farmers comes in, but it does come back down to knowing who your customer is, what's important to them, and how to communicate that. And communicate it in a venue that they'll actually find the message.
Right. And I think there's ways that we, so these, in a way, I feel the groupings here are more helpful to you just to see what are some different ways you can segment the audience, so you can segment them based on kind of who they are culturally or what they like to do, where they work or where they spend their days. So that would be something I would encourage you to think about is just like what are different ways we can segment the audience. The specific segments I gave you are really just examples. If they're helpful to you, take them. But if not, I can imagine that you can imagine more accurate groups and target audiences for your market. But when we look at them, if we know, there are things we know about these groups, and then there are kind of extended assumptions we make about them. So for instance, like someone like the Back to the Lander, we can assume like, oh, they wear Birkenstocks and they heat their house with wood and they moved here from Connecticut or whatever, and they grew up from a professional class family and then they threw it all away or whatever. Those are all pretty wild assumptions. We know that they came here, because they're a Back to the Lander, they came here because they were interested in a rural landscape. That's probably a pretty safe assumption. Or an outdoor enthusiast, they may be a man. We don't know that. We can't make that assumption. But we do know from the very category we put them in that they like to recreate outside.
But so thinking back, again, when it relates back to food, so the outdoor enthusiast is going to be much more receptive to a message that conveys, how is your maple syrup going to fuel my long bike ride, versus the tourist who's like, ooh, I want to taste that maple syrup that's got a bit of bourbon in it. Completely different messages, completely the same product. And so then you'll see that you've got the maple syrup that's packaged for the rip, zip, and go for the bikers, completely different message than the maple syrup that's packaged in this fancy little thing with the aged bourbon bottle. Two different market segments. But that's what's important. So thinking about, okay, when I think about the outdoor enthusiast, what sort of message is going to resonate? The message that's going to resonate with them is about their health and lifestyle, their muscle building, their endurance, those type of messages. The Back to the Lander might value the fact that you have a diversified farm and you're into permaculture. Again, very different messages. They're not going to care about a 4-hour-long bike ride and how much lactic acid buildup you're going to get.
Totally, great point. Okay, so now what I would encourage you all to do is to identify some of your target audiences that you are currently servicing, or if you're really interested in kind of stretching a little bit on the, if you feel like your primary marketing goal this year is to stretch on the outsides a little, maybe identify some groups here that are within reach, but are maybe not just exactly who's coming to your market all the time. And I would say, like, let's aim for 4 target audiences and really try to profile them a little bit. What do they like? What kind of benefits are they seeking? How do they communicate? Where do they get information? And I think that covers it. Does that feel like a clear task? Okay, cool. So we'll do maybe just like 5 minutes on this. Did Norwich, Steve, did you?
No, we had a little internal thing. We were hung up on defining the existing market, and we have 3 markets kind of working here, so we didn't get to.
They're really different.
I want people who are shopping at Hannaford's. I want people who just don't come out on Saturday to shop just for vegetables.
We had some. We had like the blue collar workers. We have the millennials with and without children. We have seniors. Some people spoke to wanting to attract regional seniors, and there was another one. Okay, that's it.
And you said we are not finding people wanting to come out on Saturday morning for vegetables. Is that what you said?
No. I'm saying I want people who are shopping at Hannaford's or Shaw's or whatever. Ones that are the ones that are not coming out to buy on Saturday mornings or whatever market day.
So a strong exercise for you might be to go to Hannaford's on Saturday morning and like watch the people who are shopping and see who are these people that you're imagining are there. Like right now, if you can't tell me who they are that you want to capture, that maybe then the exercise is to go there and kind of observe them. And are they women? Are they men? Do they have kids with them? Are they 30 or 60 or 18? To get a sense of them. And if you took it to this level, you could then even maybe like ask them, a few people, like, hey, are you aware of the farmer's market? Have you ever tried? Just to kind of check it out.
Well, I think that's great, and then it's the next step. How do you approach them? And you kind of touched on it by actually asking them.
Right.
And this past year, we did a survey to the general community and tried to get some input about what people want. And we surveyed our customers, but then we threw it out to the general community and got, some feedback from them. But it's so hard to identify why people don't come.
Well, it's really hard when you don't have a sense also of who they are. It's like if you're always at the market Saturday morning and you're thinking like, oh, there are people at Hannaford's who aren't here, but you can't quite like pinpoint it. But if you took a Saturday and you went there and you could kind of see like, okay, demographically who they are, and then like, oh, are they wearing T-shirts that all say Dartmouth or that, say CrossFit, Hanover CrossFit, or, like to kind of get a sense of what they're in. You could just watch them a little bit. This is like the psychology part is like, who are these people? And then if you see like, oh, CrossFit lets out at 9 a.m. and it's next door to Hannaford's and they all come to Hannaford's, maybe I should go to CrossFit and like do a little flyering and demo there to see if any of those people might come to the farmer's market. So that's what, I would say once you kind of have a sense of who you're targeting, to then reflect back to your features and benefits. Like, did we identify the right features and benefits, or were there some other benefits we were kind of skirting around that actually is really perfect for the CrossFit people?
And that goes back to that market segmentation. So yes, you're in the Upper Valley. Your target market is obviously going to be a very specific geography, but within that target market, we've identified that CrossFit members tend to care about their health, value it to the point where they would seek out fresher vegetables. So the benefit is we've got fresher vegetables than everybody else, and making that message and making that connection. So finding out within your market, who are the subsets? Is it soccer moms? If it's soccer moms, let them know, hey, we're open on your way home from practice. Is it hockey moms? Again, look at when you see the big companies advertising, Honda teamed up with NHL. They're just trying to target people who like hockey. They've just identified that everybody's got to buy a car, but if you like hockey, you'll be more likely to like Honda over Toyota because we sponsor hockey games. So finding out what are the different sort of activities happening in your region and how can you tag into those activities. This table over here, we talked about the fact that we've got snowbirds and we've got folks with EBT. Those are two very different market messages. But the snowbirds might be excited about the fact that they're going to have product that they can't get in Florida. It's homegrown. It reminds them of what things used to be when they were 40, and now they're in their 60s or 70s and they're up in Florida. So getting them to reminisce a bit, whereas the EBT folks are going to be looking for super high value. How much product can I get for my EBT dollars?
Which the kids will eat.
Which the kids will eat, right. We got to show them it's not all just broccoli, or if it is going to be broccoli, how can they prepare it in a way that's going to be appetizing for the kids? So that's where that element of market segmentation comes in, which is just even within a specific geographic area, what are the subsets of the population? And we don't expect you to target all of them all at once. So for St. Johnsbury, that's what I was saying too. He's got a huge, diverse audience. Understand what your goals are and then kind of tackle one audience at a time and just try to see if you can make traction with that audience. And the important thing is if you find that you're not making traction, it either means that the message we've identified isn't working. So this goes back to profiling and assumptions. We start off with assumptions, we try to test those assumptions, enact a plan on those assumptions. If our assumptions are wrong, we'll notice because we're either not gaining the increase in attendance or we're not gaining the increase in transactions or the increased dollar per transaction, whatever our measurable goal was, and we'll say, okay, that didn't work. On to the next thing. So it is going to be a bit of trial and error, but it's to the best of your abilities, you identify some assumptions, try to research those assumptions to validate them or not, and then try to set up an action plan based upon what you've identified. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, so we are getting a little thin on time, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about the components of a marketing campaign. And we often, when Rose asked what is marketing, people kind of said like communication, flyers, social media, and those are all marketing exercises. And when we put them into a campaign, it's we really pull together a bunch of different specific activities within a defined goal that we can assess with a measurable outcome. So that's really the backbone to a successful marketing campaign. And I know so often all of us do these marketing exercises where we just do something, we're like, I gotta get the flyers out, and we make the flyers and we stick them up and it costs $200 and we're like, oh, was that worth it? I don't know. And we didn't, we just don't really give ourselves any metrics to know. We never even set a goal for those flyers, so we can't measure if it was successful or not. So the steps in setting up a marketing campaign would really always start with establishing a goal and objectives. And so as we're heading into the farmers market summer season now, and as we're heading into this little last part of the workshop, possibly designing a bit of a campaign, I would encourage you all to really identify like one concrete goal, like Steve's goal of reaching a little bit into a new audience. That's a great goal. And so the next step would be like, how would we measure that? What is a way that we could measure that we were starting to do that? Once we've decided we have a goal, we have objectives, putting the framework of how much money you have to spend around that, so you know kind of approximately what we're looking at. We have $500. We're probably not going to get a TV ad, but we might do a big Facebook blast and a survey and a flyer or something like that. So a ballpark budget. Then identifying some of those strategies and tactics that would fit within that budget. and then prioritizing them based on your available resources and which activities would really return the highest outcomes on that investment. And in terms of establishing goals, to the extent that you can establish goals that are measurable is how successful you'll be. So if we establish goals that are to reach out to, to integrate some new customers into our market this year, that's a pretty hard goal to measure. But if you set some parameters around that, like our goal is to reach 100 new customers this year, suddenly you have a number there that you can kind of target within. So if you can address your goals to kind of specific target numbers and that reflect back to your business goals. So the reason we want to attract 100 new customers is because we want to see a 2% increase in sales, and we think those 100 customers are going to bring it. So to really reference goals that have measurable impacts that you can keep an eye on.
And I would just tie into that, for example, if you thought the 2% was going to be from those 100 customers, that's because you knew that based on the average spending rate and the gross sales that the market generated, that 2% would be from 100 customers based on your average spending rate and your gross sales. Be very specific. Break everything down into building blocks.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to skip a couple of these. So I would love to just show you, because we're talking about those activities. This yellow sheet is going to be your friend in setting up campaigns this year. This is a sheet that Rose put together that can really help you identify. It's a great place to kind of, once you've established your goal, to brainstorm your different tactics or strategies you might use to achieve that goal. So that would go under tactics. And then to start identifying out some of the costs and resources you would need to do that, both in time and money and human resources. And when you've done that, when you've kind of matrixed out what tactics you're hoping to do or what tactics you could do and how much it would cost, then you can start looking at, okay, tactic 1 is only going to cost $100 and we have time to do it. Let's do that one. Tactic 2, wow, if we really were going to do that right, it's going to cost $5,000, or we have to do it in June when nobody has time. Let's scratch that one for now, but keep it on the list so maybe next year we can do it. So it's really, when we're brainstorming tactics, so often we brainstorm this whole list of them and we don't really prioritize them at all, and either people negate them right away and say, well, we couldn't do that because X, Y, or Z, and then the idea just dies, or we make a whole big list and we never do any of them because it's there's 20 things on the list. So if you make the list and you kind of sketch out what some of the resources are going to be, what resources are going to be necessary, and then circle the most promising ones, you're going to have a better chance of doing them this year or in your time frame. So that I think this is a great resource and would really encourage people to check it out as they're planning their marketing activities for the year. I think we're done, right? Erin, I'm looking at you. If we had 5 minutes, I would give people 5 minutes to say let's identify a few tactics. So now that you've done a lot of work with your geographic region, thinking about your benefits and your messaging and your target customers, and to some extent I've heard all of you talking about goals, if you want to identify a handful of tactics that you could work on either at your own market or maybe even collaboratively in your region, I would use this time as an open brainstorm, so not necessarily to start scratching things off, but just to say hey, what if we did this? And I would really see this as a conversation starter that as you go back home and you go back to your boards and you say, we went to this really awesome marketing workshop, that maybe then there's room to continue the conversation and start prioritizing at that point. Does that feel like it would be fun to do? Great. Okay, so we just have about 5 minutes because I see all these other people who look like they're waiting to talk to us. But so let's just take 5 minutes, and this is really just a free creative space to talk with your colleagues from your region about some tactical things you might do to achieve your marketing goals this year.